So what I wanted to talk to you about is really the whole thing of leadership and management. And obviously this is again being highlighted so much within the space that we've now got so many people working remotely, and will probably continue to work remotely. And so I had a look at, well, so what is the things that really makes a difference in terms of remote? And to be quite honest, so much comes back to the basics of leadership and management, and what changes is just simply how you actually implement that. So these are my thoughts on it. There's a difference between leadership and management. We all know that, but what is that difference? And if we look at leadership, we really are talking around what is your vision? What's the end game? So in the leadership role, you are envisaging the future that hasn't as yet materialized or come into reality. You're also enrolling and inspiring your community, your team, your customers, your suppliers. So when you're stepping in with the leadership role, you're playing that role of enrolling and inspiring people. And then another big part, and this also sort of is, leadership and management are not mutually exclusive, but a large part of leadership and in fact management is to anticipate and predict what's coming at us. So, in this time, obviously that has become really, really challenging. And where we before would be looking much further ahead, I think what's changed in current circumstances is that we need to look at much shorter windows so that we have a more better handle and we're better able to anticipate and predict, not looking too far into the future. I think it's too wobbly, too uncertain at this stage. So, and I just wanted to make the point here, as we're starting to open up, we're anticipating what will that be, what will be the impact, what will happen if this happens. So we're doing it automatically as well, but obviously very important in times where there's so much change going on. When we're looking at the sort of role of management, we're really talking more around setting clear goals and targets. So, what is the goal for the team? What is the goal for the individual staff member? What is it that they have to achieve? And then we've got to be obviously tracking that progress, tracking how the team are doing towards actually attaining that. And traditionally, that's where your sort of KPIs start coming in. Key performance indicators for those of you that don't enjoy acronyms too much. And then what are the consequences? Now, unfortunately, the word consequences tends to bring up more negative than positive, but I mean this word very neutrally. If I've done something, what is the consequences of my doing it? If I've done it well, do I get praise? Is there positive reinforcement? If I've done it badly, are there consequences to that, be it corrective action, be it disciplinary action? So I use the word very negatively because the trouble is that we do things all the time. We let our team are accomplishing things, we do nothing. They get it wrong, we might be all over them. So what are we reinforcing and what are we encouraging and what are we actually managing? So there's always got to be consequences to the results that our teams produce. And then we've got to get into rhythms and routines. So, every business owner can solve his problem on any given day. Especially entrepreneurs, hell of a resourceful, they're able to look at their situation and they will come up with a plan. They will morph it. They will survive the crisis. But the difficulty comes in is that we don't build a rhythm and routine around what we do. So we eventually run out of energy because we're fixing, and we don't have the benefit of the momentum. So, okay, that problem has by and large now been fixed. So I can now concentrate on something else and feel assured that this rhythm and routine will continue to happen. So I think, as I said, not mutually exclusive, but on a broad brush stroke, that would be the sort of thing, differences between leadership and management. We looked at it another way on the sort of cylinders of high performance. We think we're body, mind, and we've got three cylinders, that's 6 cylinders. We've then got our heart, we've got our spirit. We want a higher energy coming in here. But really the mind and body are the cylinders of management. In the management role, we are controlling the moving parts. We are engaging with people at a mind level and making sure that they're following through on the various activities and achieving the various goals. If we are in the leadership role, we are then starting to engage the hearts and people's spirits. And that obviously, what happens is if we've got a 16-cylinder engine in terms of these sums, mind and body really is like firing on 3 and 3. It's like firing on six cylinders. So when we start engaging the hearts and people's spirits and what they're doing, we start actually firing up the engine. And now they're bringing their own energy to the party. It's not just being driven by the manager. And if any of you have read the Gallup studies, you'll know that, although there has been a slight improvement in the levels of engagement, the majority of people in business are shown, team members in business, employees, are shown to be disengaged. In other words, they're not really interested. They're not firing on the hearts and spirits. They're just getting through in terms of their mind and body. And about 22%, I think, of people are shown to be actively disengaged, which means that they're actually sabotaging the employer. So, one's got to be mindful that if you are the leader of your business, if you are the business owner, you've got to be playing the leadership game. You've got to be playing the management game. So, to what extent are you engaging people in their hearts and spirits, and to what extent are you just in the mind and body? Because we want to fire up both. And so if you look at the leadership, it's the leadership's job to envisage and to dream what is that dream, and to set what those 3 to 5 year goals might be. And that's really around strategy. And then we start coming into execution. So what's a 1-year goal? What's a 90-day goal? What do you need to be doing this week? What you need to be doing now? And that really is in the realm of execution. And so leadership tends to deal a lot more around leadership. Strategy is a lot more around leadership. Execution is a lot more around management. The other place that it comes into being the whole idea of management and leadership and the different approach is that leadership tends, and for those of you, I'll just take you through those that aren't familiar with above and below the point of power. So below the point of power is where we have blame, we have excuses and denial. So especially in situations that we're currently experiencing now, it's whose fault is it for causing the virus? What a silly idea for them to close down the economy. I can't make a living because of this happening. There's all these blames, excuses, or denials. We're not doing our weekly cash flow, so we don't know whether we're going to make it through or not make it through. And the problem is, it doesn't matter how legitimate your excuses. It doesn't matter if it's a reason. Shirley, that's not an excuse. This is a fact. Yeah, it's a fact. The problem is that below the point of power, you've only got reasons. We want our business owners to have results. So to get results, we have to take ownership. We have to take accountability. We have to take responsibility for our own circumstances. Now, this isn't a blame game. This isn't, oh, I'm responsible for my results and therefore, look at these results, they're awful, so I'm an awful person. No, this is simply about the person who's most interested in your life is you. So if you take 100% responsibility, these are my circumstances, what could or should I be doing to move myself forward? So below the point of power is really where the victim lies. We are the victim of the circumstances. We are a victim of COVID. We are a victim of the lockdown. So we really, really disempower ourselves because we cannot move ourselves forward. We cannot get the results that we want until the reasons that is causing us our situation changes, until COVID's finished, until the government lifts the lockdown, until this happens, until that happens. So above the point of power is where we are powerful, where we are the victim. Yes, the situation is as it is. I am responsible to move my life forward. I have to be accountable for my business. So what could or should I be doing? So this is where now your mind starts opening up. So, okay, well, are the areas that I can pivot the business as an example? So if we're looking back to management and leadership, management is tending to have to manage and deal with below the point of power behavior. So it's a case of, staff member hasn't done something and you want to discuss it with them, and you straight away comes back at you and it's like, oh yeah, but you didn't do this, and if this company was better, then I could do that, etc. Or you get the barrage of reasons, excuses versus, moving up to reasons that you have to deal with. So, when we're dealing with management and we're managing people, we are managing situations where the below the point of power is very active, very alive. When we're in the leadership role and playing more of a leadership, and if you think about your team, when they enroll, they're inspired, they're being leaders in their own rights, they straight away start stepping into the era of being accountable for their actions, taking responsibility. Yeah, this is what we can do, and what if we do that? So there's quite a different mindset that is at play between the two. And as much as we all want to, would love to spend most of our time in the leadership role, we have to also play the management role. And we have to get better at dealing with the blame, the excuses, the reasons, the denial that permeate this area that we have to manage. All right, so the other thing with leading and managing people and this idea of predicting and anticipating. So I think that if one accepts that that's a very important part of your leadership and your management role, then you are looking at it on an ongoing basis. So now we come back into that curve that I showed you, 3 to 5 years, your 12 months, your 90 days, your this week. So you're looking at it saying, well, are we on track or aren't we? So we started to create the momentum, and we started to predict and anticipate what's happening in our business, what's happening in the team. And then, of course, there's a whole area of delegation. So, we all know you've got to delegate to, but then no one wants to delegate because, actual fact, you delegate and it doesn't work out so well. So you have to go back and fix the whole thing. So really, it's a lot easier for me to do it myself. So just some thoughts around delegation. Delegation isn't only about telling people what to do. The most important part about delegation is making sure that the people that your teams that you're delegating to understand the priorities. We all interpret life according to how we see it, and don't assume that how your team sees it and how you see it is the same thing. And we are all doing what we think is the most important thing first. So if you haven't clearly delegated and made sure that your team know what their priorities are, you will find that people will work on their own set of priorities, which may or may not, in actual fact, support what you want to achieve. The other thing that they're going to do is the priorities are going to be stuck in the urgent and important category. So they're going to be in the crisis, dealing with the crisis, or, geez, the boss is really unhappy with that today. Best I get that done first. Whereas in actual fact, maybe the thing that was number 3 that they had to get was the most important, would have had the biggest impact on the business. So make sure that your team understand the priorities. What are the data and metrics? What are the data and metrics that say to you that your team members are on track or are not on track? And here, ideally, you're wanting some lead and lag indicators. Lag indicators, we've done X rand in sales. Lead indicators, we've contacted 10 customers. Our conversion rate is 20%. Those are all would be examples of lead indicators. So you want a mix between lead and lag indicators. A nice little challenge to you is, if your business was running well and you were on desert island, what are the 5 figures that you could get which would say to you, my team's on track or they're not on track? That would give you a good indication of the data and metrics that you're wanting. You've got to have feedback. So your data and metrics feedback on a regular basis, getting that feedback, and obviously also from your team, so it starts becoming around your meeting rhythms. And I'll talk a little bit more about that now. And then what are the consequences? What is the recognition and what is the reward? And you know, there's the old cliched saying is, you get what you tolerate. So if you've got anything in your business that you don't like coming from your team members right now, go above the point of power and accept that you are tolerating that. And make a decision for yourself. I'm either going to stop tolerating it or I'm going to stop whining about it, because you know, clearly I need to make peace with it. If it's something that you really think can impact on your business and you want to do something about it, so right, I'm not going to tolerate that anymore. What will I need to do to change how I manage that situation? And then remembering that recognition, positiveness breeds positiveness. So where do you recognize what people have done? I'm not talking about here's the bonus. I'm talking about thank you, well done, great job. That appreciation for what people do for you. And this time, this COVID time, has definitely reinforced how important this is, that you actually make a pointed effort about that. So especially if you're in a virtual situation, where is the recognition for people? Where is the reward? If, as I say, reward isn't about money necessarily, it's about the thank you. And then the biggie, repeat. And if you look at the picture I've used on this slide, the picture are neural pathways. And the reason I use that is that the neural pathways are set. The research tells us that by 7, most of those are connected in one way or another in each of our brains. By 35, they really are there's pretty much no further movement happening. And we then live out our lives repeating the same behaviors because we've got the same pathways over and over and over again. So if we're wanting something to happen, something new, we have to create the habit. And in creating the habit, we create new neural pathways. And that only happens through repetition. And it's my experience that most business owners completely underestimate the amount of repetition you need to do to create the new habits that you want to have with your staff members. So we do it once, we do it twice, we do it 3 times, we forget, maybe do it, and then we're like, oh, this stuff doesn't work, because you know what, I did it and I trained them, and you know, and look what's happened. It's gone back to how it was. And we have to repeat it until it becomes a habit, until we form new neural pathways, so that becomes the default way of doing it. And it takes a lot of repetition. But don't underestimate that. It might be tedious to begin with, but it really will be worthwhile once you've got everyone doing what you want them to be doing. So meeting rhythms, and really, what are we trying to achieve with meetings? Because meetings can also be just taking a huge amount of time. They can actually be demotivating. obviously in the virtual space, it's easy enough to have a meeting, but what's the value of the meeting? So the first and most important thing about any meeting, it has to have a purpose. If you cannot express to your team members the purpose of that meeting, then you are not in a position yet to invite anyone to that meeting. And the purpose has got to be clear, and don't try and do too many things. So perhaps it's to align everyone, perhaps it's to make sure that everybody's on the same page, the project's is on track, that the sales are where they need to be. Try and rather have less reasons for the meeting than try and have one meeting that deals with a whole lot of stuff. So what is the purpose of the meeting? What is the agenda of the meeting? And I would suggest that you actually set up your meetings with a heading, purpose of the meeting or reason for the meeting. This will be the agenda. Because if you don't have the agenda, the thing just will go off track. It'll take a long time and it creates a lot of frustration. And as soon as everyone thinks that there's no value in it, you start wasting more and more time, because if there's no value in it, people don't participate constructively. A really good idea with it is split the roles. So have somebody who is the agenda keeper and the purpose whose job it is to make sure that you stay on point with it, so you stay on track with the purpose and the agenda, and you have another person actually running the meeting. It just really works well. When you're trying to run the meeting and keep to the agenda, you can get sucked down those rabbit holes. So it really works well. I must say this is one thing in the digital space and on the online space, that it's easier to control meetings than it's ever been before, because you can put that agenda, up on screen. You can manage breakaway rooms and what have you. So that works pretty well. So this is really what the meeting rhythm needs to look like. So your quarterly, your 90-day goals, what there needs to be your monthly goals, those we chunk down into weekly goals, and from there, what happens on a daily basis. And if you look at quarterly, you're talking a lot more strategic. So you have a couple of strategic things that you want to actually concentrate on. Monthly, within those strategies that you're implementing, you're looking at the big issues. Weekly, you're looking at the priorities, and then daily becomes much more of a tactical thing. I think that with the current situation, the monthly focus is more critical than ever. I'm almost want to be saying to you right now, the monthly focus almost has a little bit more precedent than even the quarterly. But most certainly what we want it to be within the context of the quarterly, so we can actually, otherwise we're just going to go from one monthly crisis to the other. The quarterly creates a context in which we look at those big issues. So just some ideas around a weekly agenda, some agendas. So the weekly agenda that I find works really well is to start with a little 5 minutes, and that's, the whiffle or what I feel like expressing. Now, the reason that you should start with this or something of the equivalent of this is because when people arrive at a meeting, their heads are all over. They've taken the kids to school, the daughters had something going on with their homework, the wife's wanting something, you've come out of a previous meeting, the customer wants you. So you've got a whole lot of stuff going on in your head. And the idea of these first 5 minutes of the whiffle is to get the people centered in the room. It's to get people actually saying, well, this is what I feel like expressing. It brings it into presence in terms of it. Another thing that actually works is a 5-minute meditation. Everyone keep quiet, try and think of nothing. And then their mind goes, but it has the effect of bringing in and getting people centered. You then want to say, are we on track or aren't we on track in terms of the 90-day goals? Again, it's a simple feedback. I'm on track to meet my quarterly goals. I'm not on track to meet my quarterly goals. You take whatever the problem is, you put it on a flip chart. You don't enter into a discussion at this point. At this point, you're just wanting to get all the issues on the table. Your KPIs or your scorecard, you're on track with those. Those are your lead and lag indicator metrics that I was talking about. Again, on track, not on track. If you're not on track, what's the problem? Onto the flip chart. It's a 5 minutes, so you've got to articulate it quickly and easily. It can't be a whole long narrative about this staff member did this, and that's why I can't meet my goals, and then the customer said that. And it's just, I'm having problems managing my team, if that's what it is. My customers are not understanding the offering that we're giving them, whatever it is. That's what goes onto your flip chart or onto your whiteboard. Quick little what are the week's wins. So again, we don't want, it's a 5 minute slot. So is there anyone that had some highlight, a highlight of the week, a win, a team win, a personal win, a customer win? Just injection, a little injection of positivity and heart and soul leadership into it, engaging people at a more positive level. Then you want to spend, I said 30 minutes, I mean, maybe it's 60 minutes for you, but you want to spend the majority of the time in this meeting discussing these lists of problems. Now, a couple of things to bear in mind when you're doing this. Not all problems are created equal. So to identify what the problem is really important. So don't assume it at face value. And then identify which are the most important things for you to solve. And you literally, if you've got a list of problems, want to have a 1 and a 2 that need to be solved. And will need to be solved that will make everything else easier or unnecessary. So if you imagine that you get into this rhythm and every week you're solving your number 1 problem in your business, it makes everything else easier or unnecessary. What will your business look like in a year, in 52 weeks, in 52 weeks time? You would have solved 52 issues that it makes everything else in your business easier or unnecessary. How powerful is that? The problem is we don't prioritize the problems. We then spend too much time trying to solve something that possibly isn't the biggest problem, and we try and solve too much. So identify exactly what the problems are, identify what your 1 and 2 biggest problems are, discuss it, look for resolutions. From there, a 10-minute development slot for your team is normally nice, so it brings a bit more of a positive element in it. You know, there's something, and doing things like getting your team to share their biggest win, or what something they've learned for the week, or whatever it is. A TED talk, they're 17 minutes, you know, that could be a nice slot. Something around a theme, perhaps, or topics that the team are currently working with. So nice to inject a bit of learning in if you can. And then wrap up. Who's going to do what by when on the 1 and 2? Remembering that if there's a burning issue that was raised in there, one of the urgent and important things that needed addressing, you can always address that outside the meeting with the individual staff member or customer. You know, so you just stay behind. Let's just tackle that one issue that you've got with your customer. But it's not something that involves the whole group. So this is a great little agenda. Definitely the wiffle, definitely the feedback of I'm on track, not on track. Identifying identifying your problems. A weekly win is a good thing to have. Your slot in terms of then solving your 1 or 2 problems, and if you can, if it lends itself to the development slot, that's also great. If you think it's going to be too much, then rather go with less is more and find another place to do development. If you look at your daily agenda, and this is, you know, people call it a toolbox talk, they call it a weekly, not a weekly huddle, a daily huddle, but really, there really are 3 things that you want to be having on this agenda. It's normally a lot more informal. It's what happened yesterday. It's what's happening today, and where are the bottlenecks or the logjam. Quick. It's no more than 15 minutes. It's 5 minutes what happened yesterday, 5 minutes what's happening today, and 5 minutes in terms of the bottleneck. If you obviously have got a big issue at the bottleneck, you say, okay, guys, that's clearly an issue. We need to address that. We will set up a time to address that particular issue. This is not the place to be into solving a whole lot of things. As I say, 5 to 10 minutes. This is really aimed at around focusing your team for the day. That's what it's aimed at. Okay, love old Anthony Robbins. Your current conditions do not reflect your potential, but rather size and quality of your goals and what you currently focus on. So what are your 90-day goals? What are your goals for this month? What are you focusing on? Because what you're focusing on normally creates the forerunner of what your team are focusing on. And if your team don't know what they're focusing on, maybe you need to have a little bit more clarity around that. So the goals, your leadership, the enrolling and inspiring, and then through management, creating the focus. So I just want to go, I've lost a slide. Time to take action. That's what I'm looking for. As you know, we're all about action. So question, write it down. What are you currently focusing on? Are you currently focusing on the negative economy, the disaster of COVID? You know, the fact that I can't get customers, I can't get sales. All negative focus is going to take you down the wrong rabbit hole, okay? Because you want to ask yourself a better question. I need to rebuild my business. Focus on rebuilding the business. Now you can ask yourself, well, what can I do about it? Where do I get new customers? I'm not getting great conversion because it's taking longer to build trust and relationship in a virtual space. How do I do that? How do I create more trust? What are my opportunities to improve my conversion? So what are you currently focusing on? What is your team currently focusing on? What does the team see as the priorities? Have you delegated a whole lot of work, but no priorities? And then they don't know what to be focusing on. They do their best to decide for themselves what they should be focusing on. Rate yourself as a leader out of 1 to 10. And I said to you, leadership is about envisaging the future and enrolling and inspiring and taking people with you. So envisaging the future, having a plan, and enrolling and inspiring people to go with you. 1 to 10. If you're not a 10, where do you think you could improve? Just one thing. Google it. Look at a TED talk on it. If it's about inspiring people, if it's about that I need to be I need to get people more engaged. So you Google engaging team members, but just choose one thing, not 500. And then rate yourself as a manager, 1 to 10. The easiest way to know whether you're a good manager or not is the team giving you the results you want? Out of every 10 days, every 10 things you want, how often are the team giving you what you want? That's your feedback. That's your mirror that says where you are out of 10 as a manager. Only half the time you get what you're wanting out of your team, then you are a 50%. You're at 50%. If 8 times out of 10 your team give you what you want, deliver, get the results, then you're at 8 out of 10. Again, get one thing you can improve at. Just concentrate on one thing this week. So I think that's really the things that I wanted to share with you this week. And obviously, as I said to begin with, yes, we're in a sort of more of a virtual space, etc. But these things that I'm talking about here, remain constant. The only question is, how do you do it in a digital space? How do you enroll and inspire in a digital space? How do you manage in a digital space? How do you make sure that you have a decent meeting rhythm? How do you make sure that there's recognition and reward? So each of the areas I spoke about, the only question you have to ask yourself is that, how do I do that in a digital space? So cool, that's really what I wanted to share with you this morning. So I'm going to unmute everyone.